Mender seeker mine detected. Hostile Mender seeker mine detected. System curtailed. System back online. High rogue agent killed. Rogue agent neutralized nearby.
Now, as y'all saw right there, we literally ghosted those guys that fast. One of our guys was hitting for 1.8 mil. Another guy was hitting for 800K. Another one was hitting for almost 900K. And a lot of people think, well, you got to run these type of builds. You know, like I showed like this, even though I call this a meta, and most people like the Eagle Bearer so they can give some survivability or whatever weapon you prefer. A lot of people like those types of builds. But if you want to get the best damage, I mean, you can go with this right here. This build right here can outbeat that build in a 1v1. Just depends on how you play it. I mean, why? Well, looky here. I'm pulse resistance, but they're not. So as long as I can keep this damage and actually get the survivability out of the Heartbreaker, I can have the same type of damage and the same type of survivability as that 1v1 type bot build, which people call the meta. So it's really about your play styles. 1v1 builds and all that, not so great, because I can come out here with a focus build, just the same, and tap you with a few shots from range. I can come out here with a pistol build and one tap you if you have a bleed build on. There's all types of counters in this game, so there is no perfect setup for your one style play, because even status right here, I can come out here and hit you with status. If you don't have a booster hive on, you're dead. Hasbro, prevent status. Explosive, I could kill multiple of your guys in one go. This is what I'm trying to explain to you guys. These 4 Horsemen builds take all this type of stuff that you can possibly have and counter it. The only thing it's not going to be able to counter is like explosive resistance or explosives. So this is where it becomes you as a player and your team need to know how to maneuver. So when stepping into the dark zone, a lot of people believe that 1v1s will really show you how good you are as a player. No, the reason why I'm probably going to step on a lot of people's toes is because inside the DZ, 1v1s just show how good your controller maneuvers are, and if you might have scripts or some kind of assisted deal where your actual money counts. That's not what's best, because if you can strafe and strafe and strafe like this with a regular controller, you can sometimes outmaneuver certain players. Not everybody, but other people have better scripts where they're doing that even faster. They look like a chicken with their head cut off. And then at the same time, it's landing shots, shooting that weapon, landing your shots. That's what matters right there, because that's going to determine whether you kill someone. Like this building right here, you can go for close quarters engagements. You may be a better player at close quarters engagements than, say, long range engagements. And that might make you shine as a single player or even as a group. But if you want the best damages, you'd have to do something else. So that's where sometimes some players bring them over to these types of areas right here, where they can get them in straightaways versus just out in the open, because that's how their team plays and they are better at those types of engagements. That is where actual PvP matters. That is where it shows you as a team and your play style is actually better, not 1Vs. Sorry to burst some people's bubbles, but that's the facts. So before I start diving into the builds and everything, we got to talk about the supposed meta, because typically a lot of people like to run this build right here, this exact same build, maybe a few changes or something like that, which we kind of call the 1v1 bot build. They typically run this build because they get the catharsis. It stops them from status and other kinds of things. It gives them a little bit of damage. But they're still missing damage in the end run. Now, if they were to do a team type deal, they could easily put on a grenadier, crossbow, sniper, and flamethrower type specialist and get all those extra multiplicatives out, but they would still be missing damage. So this is where it comes. This is where the big part comes in. where you start using these types of builds that I'm going to be showing y'all and actually give you the little bit more of an edge against these types of builds right here, and still give you the same feel of this build without having to use this supposed meta with the catharsis, because as you see, it gives you 30%. Now I'll start breaking down the numbers later on of that right there, and you'll start to understand why these ones here can actually out DPS these, because as you saw in the very beginning, those guys were using catharsis and healer, and we ghosted them that easily. So the main one is going to be your ongoing directive build, or as I like to call it, famine, because once you get these bleed bullets, everybody starts losing stuff and your team actually gets to survive even more. This one here can actually have a lot of survivability. Now, what we mainly want to have on this is, of course, the Ridgeway's Pride. Now, the main specialist you want is the Firewall. And the reason why for the Firewall is because it gives you and your team the extra 10% damage out of your build. At the same time, you have to be within 15 meters to get the bleed bullets. So there you go. Now, this is where it comes down to, is the range. Being able to get those types of bullets out farther or closer is what really matters. This gives you a little bit more of a range. Now, with the ongoing directive, you can easily put on 2 pieces of, say, SMGs if you prefer, but you'll waste a lot of ammo. Like the Vector 45, if we come to this one, this here is going to be at the 15 meter range. So as you can see, we lose a lot on the damage drop off, but we get a more in the stability, so we can land more shots, faster reloads, so we can beat players down. It's not a whole lot, but it can matter in the dark zone. These are the type of stats that you have to look for in the weapon that you prefer to choose. You can even use the same one as a Banshee, but you can see right here, 15 meters. So this one works within that to give you the Ridgeway's Pride, to give you the damage. You can put a lot of bullets on target and kill them. Like I was saying in the other one, you can go to, what's another one? The CMC Banshee, or CMM Banshee. Or you can even throw on a Grudge. So if your teammates are playing close by, you can actually get them, because once you kill them with a status effect, guess what? That's extra critical hit damage, critical hit chance for your other teammates. So having that on a backup type weapon would actually be beneficial. This is where it becomes player's choice. The best one that you're going to have is the SIG MPX, because it has a little bit more damage than the Grudge version of this right here, and you can still have the Sadist, and that little bit of damage can actually make or break you winning an engagement. So that is where this stuff comes down. Now, if you were to do 2 SMGs like this, you can easily take a backpack and put on Sokolov rather than having that. But as you can see, this is, again, I'm trying to show y'all guys this, the range is 16 meters. So this is where it still works just the same versus 22 meters with the SIG and PX. So you can get a little bit more range, more damage out farther away in case you have to bleed them before you come up to them, so you can actually have it. Now, again, like I said, whatever AR you want to put on here, you can do the exact same. You're going to lose a lot of critical hit chance, and you'll have another player that can give you that, but also having a range type weapon is more beneficial. That's the one reason why I'm not using the Sokolov backpack. If you stick to nothing but SMGs, definitely throw a Sokolov backpack on here. But if you're going to use 2 different types of weapons, like I'm using this and the LMG right here, which gives me some range and 200 bullets of bleed ammo, which you can't pass up. 200 bullets of bleed ammo is nice. So having that ability to have this on here, as you can see right here, is the benefit. That's why we have the Grupo backpack, because that gives both weapons, no matter which ones we use, the same type of damage. Okay, maybe not as much because, you know, the crit chance versus all that, but everything we have on here is critical hit damage. So guess what? We're going to get pretty much the same amount of damage. The only difference is one has a lot more damage to targets out of cover and damage to armor. The other one has crit chance and damage to targets out of cover. So this is where you're going to benefit these 2 weapons on here. Having 200 rounds and then also having severe damage. Now, on this piece right here, like I said, you want to have the Wicked and the Grupo. Okay, this allows you for 2 weapons to have similar damages. We'll just put it that way. Not same, we'll say similar. Okay, then that's also going to give you personal damage where you can actually glass people down. Now, if you don't want to use Wicked, definitely go Companion. Okay, because you're going to be next to your healer. Your healer is going to be keeping this guy alive, while at the same time your other players are going to be bleeding the other targets to give you the max amount of Ridgeway Pride at the same time. So Having this with nothing but critical hit chance and giving out this 20% weapon damage is what's vital for your team. This is where this build comes in clutch. Now, for your two specialists or skills, you can use a booster hive, which would help you out, get rid of some status or something like that, because this one does not have unbreakable. Or you could put on a stinger hive, whatever you personally prefer on this build. That's going to help you out. Now, for a backup one, definitely using riot foam or even an EMP sticky. That way you can keep the player in place. You might be able to get multiple players. You could come up there and shut down their stuff with an EMP sticky. You could throw traps. The shock traps. Keep them all in place for a little bit. Whatever you prefer on this. I just suggest having the booster hive so that way you can have some survivability against status if the players come out there and drop status. Now, as for damage-wise, you can see 334. That's the first bit once we get the target on bleed, and that is where it keeps going. You see it drop down for a little bit because the target's not on bleed, and then as soon as you bleed them back, it goes back. So 334 up to 401, once we have some bleed bullets, is what this build will hit for. Once you start hitting headshots, if you're good with letting headshots, you can hit 506. So it's not a bad setup. Now, with the LNG, again, we have 200 rounds. So if we don't have bleed bullets, we can easily swap to this, which has tons of bleed bullets, tag them at far range, and still get some serious damage because we have damage targets that are covered and damage to armor, plus 200 rounds. Now let's show you what it looks like when the team actually synergizes with you. So you see we don't have any armor. Someone's going to heal us. We got the future proc, and we're bleeding the target at 752 on the headshot. 752. Not bad. Now this is going to be your main damage player. Now, of course, everybody loves a good spotter build and a spotter companion build. Well, this build is compensated by everybody else. When what the other players give you on this build, it turns this one into glass cannon times 3. Now, what do I mean by that is normally this weapon right here with just the fast hands on here will only hit first, say around, I'd say about 400 something K with this type of build, maybe about 500 K. Once we actually start getting all those extra damages, we can boost this entire build up to, and I'm not kidding, almost 1.5 mil. And that's where you literally become a glass cannon with a tank. And imagine taking some of these blues off and putting on more damage. Now, while we also have the GR9 for the extra bleed bullets, you can easily throw in an Eagle Bearer to give yourself some more survivability. So that is where this build can come in so clutch. Now, the Police M4, you can put whatever talent you want on here. I just have fast hands because we want to show what it's like before we put any extra damage on. But I guarantee a lot of people are asking, well, how are you getting companion? How are you getting spotter when you don't have anything on here? Well, that's fine. You can easily trade this also, instead of having companion, to wicked, because the person's going to be giving you bleed bullets. But if you lose out on that person and that person dies and you don't have any bleed bullets, now you're SOL. You have nothing. So companion can actually become more clutch. While this here can actually give you, if you have a good team who can keep your survivability going, you actually get 3% more damage out of this build. So again, how do we get the spotter out and how we do this? Well, I've got other builds that are going to give us this. So this allows you to put whatever else you want on here. You can even put a roly-poly ball on here, defender drone, whatever you want. You can still put a pulse on here. Give yourself that extra added to it. Versus these right here help complement your team. So rather than just having this, like I said, if you want to get companion out, we'll show you how to get this out because we don't have any players with us right now. So we're not showing any of the extra bonuses. But again, roly-poly ball. Give yourself that extra kill when you drop a player. You know, that kind of stuff. Now, for the build, Grenadier must be on this player. Reason why is because all the other players are giving you so much extra damage. That extra 5% you need to give to your other teammates. Now, this right here, because this player is also going to be giving to your other teammates the Coyote's Mask proc. Now, it depends on how far you are away. Typically, this build is going to play and shoot from afar. You're not going to be up close and personal. Now, you can if you want to, but from right here, you're typically going to be fighting players at 15 meters or something like that. So right now, we're going to show you what it looks like with the extra critical hit damage. But you're mostly going to be playing a little bit farther back, letting the ongoing directive and the healer guy go up there and fight up there, where he's at right now. You're going to be staying back about here, so that way you can just do damage from afar. Because again, this build works best even at 35 meters. So right now, these damage numbers are 305. And again, we don't have any extra damage on our gun, and we're just getting the extra coyotes proc. Now, we don't even have companion, we don't even have a spotter. So that's still some pretty good damage. That's typical damage for a 6 blue in the dark zone. So we're already doing that before we even have the spotter and the companion. So what we'll do is we're going to throw some stuff on here because, again, the commander build will be giving you your spotter. So, if again, depends on what you want for your skills. If you don't like the skills I have on here, change it up. Allow yourself to use those. But the commander will always be giving you, because he's playing back there with you, that extra spotter ability. Now, for right now, if you even wanted to, another thing, you could even throw this on to change this build up. So that way you can always have a pulse. You don't need to have the coyotes proc. Run it like this, and then again, like I said, you could even do this, which is a typical piece for most players. Okay, this is a typical spotter companion build right here. This is what it normally looks like. But when you're playing with a team, this is where this build shines, because again, you don't have to have the laser pointer. You can still get that extra damage out and keep on going. Now, the Brazos on here, we've already explained this before in another video. The Brazos actually outbeats the Grupo, because when that weapon damage works out is when it gets to their health. You're going to have the damage to armor from your gloves and the damage to targets that are cover, so go for the extra weapon damage so you can glass the person down when you get to their health. That's where it really matters, because you'll still take the same amount of armor chunks off of a player nonetheless. So we're hitting for 403. For people who want to care about numbers, we're hitting for 403. Now that we got everything caught, 512. And it still takes about 4 bullets to take off 1 armor chunk. So if that tells you anything, you can take 4 chunks of armor off with 1 bullet in the dark zone. That's how the math works backwards in the dark zone. So again, this is where this build comes in, and I'll show you what all the other builds do to complement this to show you the damages right now. So now that they're all here, we've got bleed bullets, we got everything. He's going to heal me up. As soon as I get healed up, he's going to pulse. And there we go. 840, 860. Average of 820. So we just doubled our damage, ladies and gentlemen. Doubled our damage. Okay? And that's with all these other stuffs. And here's the kicker. We haven't even got 1 extra proc on here, ladies and gentlemen. We're still missing 1 extra piece. And I even put opportunistic onto this now. So as you saw at the very beginning, we still hit for almost 800k. So we'll say it's flat out 800k. And you can get more damage farther away, or even put it on a carbine 7. So where are we missing some damage? Well, let's say one player happens to hit them with Sledgehammer. Yes, we missed the one part. What about the Sledgehammer comp? Could we actually get those players with this? This is where it comes in clutch. We've got it all right here. 1-4 instantly. Hit that player instantly with one of those grenades. Everything jumps up to 1.4 on a police M4. Now, while those 2 builds will not change for the 4 Horsemen, these last 2 will. Now, the healer right here can change in 2 different ways. Actually, probably about 3 different ways. You can go for this right here with the crossbow and give outgoing healing, which actually does give a loop effect with your backpack. But because this healer can actually benefit the team with the grenade and the lefty shotgun, that is where we get that extra damage from, ladies and gentlemen. That is where your team can actually turn everything into instantaneously getting triple the damage. because players are again based off armor and health damage. So getting that extra 40% can actually benefit your team. So with this, there's another change that I'll talk about here later on, but you want to find at least one piece, because on here you can put on the technician and allow your teammates now to have invincibility against like EMPs by simply dropping a hive and them staying beside you. So you want to find one piece like this where you can change a skill tier off and put on an armor core or a weapon core or whatever you prefer as a team. Now again, the third version of this is actually changing off and doing the exact same with this, but then also having Hasbro in these spots where I have repair skills. Because the Hasbro can actually stop players from getting you on burn or killing your player or EMPing them or even sticking them into place. But the R&K backpack with this version gives a loop effect with the crossbow. How does it do this? Let me explain. As you can see right here, we have increased outgoing healing. So while I heal myself, I'm also healing them, and as the heals themselves get more stronger by giving outgoing healing. Then the R&K, as I heal them, it heals me because I have incoming repairs, which keeps me going at the same time and allows the safeguard talent to stay in effect, which gives you 160% heals on this build because of the future. Then if you throw in the Alps with the chest piece, this will go from 20% to 30%. And if you were to die, they would still have the other 15%. Now, you can also make this version right here, which is a damage healer. This is where it becomes a fourth, which is kind of an odd one, but it does work. But you lose out on the backpack part, which now basically turns it into where you can put the technician on, have the EMP of the invincibility, having the Alps right here, giving the extra 30%, and then doing so. But this is still going to be your strongest healer where you'd want to have, so that way you can have some hazard protection. Okay, and that's where you can put that on. And again, you can even throw the future backpack on and put on BTSU gloves. Now, where this falls down, and I'll try to explain this, where the future backpack falls down with the BTSU gloves is at the 120% versus the 160, and you also lose out on these extra big pieces like being able to sorry, my train of thought, where you can do the loop effect because you're missing that one piece of R&K. Now, the future backpack falls down in this type of aspect. If I put this hive down, within 5 meters of this, you lose damage, which we typically say is that white line. So anything inside that first white ring right there, that's a 5 meter mark. So as you can see, here's 5 meters. We can do this. I can even, I think the best way I could explain it is if I were to toss a grenade. Yeah, because you can see the range right there. 30, 60 feet, so all that right out there, they would have 100% as long as I have my safeguard going. But once I bring it in, I believe it's what, like 15 feet or something like that, would be 3 meters or 5 meters. Yeah, right about there. As you can see, that's close to that white line, very close to that white line. So anything outside of that white line does not get 120% heals. The bad part is 2 of your players need to play from range and 2 of your players need to play up close. So that is where this build and the synergy of these works the best. So anything from this inside of this line gets 160% with this type of build. And once you cross this line right here, anything outside this line gets 100%. And that's where the heals come in. So in a way, you would drop your hive for the guys who are playing in the back while you come up to this area inside this 5 meter range with your chem launcher and heal the other player, which is your ongoing player. Doing it this way makes these builds survive even more. However, while doing this, we found a silent nerf. As you can see, I took damage for myself, and the future initiative proc is gone. Once he heals me, the future initiative proc comes back. So, I don't know if this is intended, but it is not stated on the build itself. Now, before we get into the build, or the builds, because there's 2 different versions of this is labeled support. This guy right here, Conquest, as I call him, he's the commander. He's the guy who literally has to change up stuff for the team. This way the team can actually benefit from multiple added things to give them that extra damage, where you can boost, as you saw, the P4 or the Police M4 up to 1.4 to 1.6 in damage. Now, how do we do that? This is where the two builds come in. It depends on your healer. Are you using the technician healer or are you using the crossbow healer? That is all it is. Whichever version you use is where you adjust this player to what you need. As well as you could still do it the exact same and swap around these types of builds. So let's get into what they are and let you choose as a player where you want certain spots. Now, this is the first one. This is going to give your team an extra 10% headshot damage. So if your team is really good at landing headshots, that's where it comes in. The Kingbreaker is a must on this specific version. Why? Because he's doing all the pulsing and you want to have that range, plus the extra damage. So that is where the perfect flatline comes in. This also complements players who like to snipe. That way you have a Nemesis on. But because we're going to be doing two different types of pulsing so we can always see where the enemy is, we have the Night Watcher and the Technician, which allows you to have the Spotter Drone, which can also give you the Companion. So that way you have everything on this player, which is just damage, and allow you to do the damage. And since we always know that the Nemesis is basically a one-shot whatever you do to any player as long as you land those headshots, this is where it comes in complementary to those type of players who like to use the Nemesis. So this allows you to get that extra headshot damage and sniper rifle damage by putting that on. Now in here we have two Peace Walker. The reason why we have the two Peace Walker is because, again, players are mainly damage to health and damage to armor. So we want to have that in here, but we need the extra crit chance. So we're sacrificing an average of, 3% damage to armor and 4% critical hit chance to get this extra damage out. So if you want to do a Seska and put on the Petrov gloves, by all means do so. This is the one build or the type of build that you can actually maneuver around. As you can see, we have pretty decent critical hit chance. So by doing this right here, the other player, who's your spotter, who's using the Coyotes, is going to give you that extra 10. So that's going to boost you up to 47. Maybe you go and do the Seska and the Contractors. That's going to boost you up an extra 4%. So now you'll be at the 50 mark. So again, this is where it becomes the player's choice type build. But the tardigrade, while it does have some bad effects, this also gives your teammates the unbreakable effect. Now, the cool part about this, a lot of people don't understand or don't know still because they don't check these types of stats. As you can see, it says 90 versus 80. It does change, but the cooldown aspect does not. So, if we go to here, the cooldown is still 60 versus 45. So you get 15 seconds faster back with only 10% less. So you're able to get that unbreakable more and more often than other players would with just a regular unbreakable. So while everybody else is keeping you alive and healing and getting those extra damages out, you get unbreakables back even faster. So always having one piece of tardigrade on is good. Now, we'll show another version with the other chest piece. But, like I said, if you want to put on a piece of Sokolov so you can get more critical chance, by all means do so. I have the Brazos in this spot because that gives me the cooldown effect for my skills, because mine is all about the skills. Having that pulse out for your team and having the spotter drone is a must. So this is where it becomes player's choice on those specific spots. Foxes, most definitely, but you have to have these two on this build because you are literally the commander. You're the guy who's actually telling everybody where to go. That's why he's Conquest. Without this player, you're not going to win on those other three builds. This is the one that matters. So while we can do damage from afar, that's fine. And again, all those other damages don't matter for this guy. His job is just to call shit out and throw out some extra bullets and get that damage out there. So we're not going to show what the other teammates will do for this build. But you can see, we are spotting always. Now, another thing, you see this right here. If I were to, let's change the target. No, not damage self, dang it. Skill haste disabled. We disable the skill haste. Clears our drone, right? It's still pulsed. That little square up there shows that it's been pulsed. Now you see it's not pulsed anymore. We're in for 448, right? 448 on the headshot. We get that extra headshot damage for our teammates. That's an extra 10%. So as we pulse, you see we jump it up to 538. 538. So we jumped up. Now, what a lot of people don't know is this. If I call out this drone that I use right here, and you see the damage numbers have gone down, if I call out my drone, the pulse rate of the drone is 3 seconds, ladies and gentlemen. 3 seconds. And you can see it is pulsed right now. 619. There's the pulse again. That's how fast it comes back. As you can see, sometimes it drops, sometimes it comes back. So it lasts just as long, but the pulse rate of this is every 3 seconds. So 1, 2, 3, and it pulses. 1, 2, 3, and it pulses. So on and so forth. So this also will give you your companion boost, which I have right now, which didn't show on the other one, which is why we're hitting for the 619. So that is how we can get that extra bit of damage out and keep a pulse going for ourselves even longer and faster. Now, another part to that is its range. Being able to do severe range with this build. Because if you can hit a shot like that, 900 or 9 mil, you're going to kill a player. The max is 6 mil on this one because of all the blues, but even at 6 mil in the dark zone, that's enough to kill a player. It literally is enough to kill a player. If not, it's going to take their unbreakable away, and then your other teammates are going to be giving you that extra damage on top of that, so you're going to go right through them, no matter what you do. Just get some bleed bullets on this piece, this weapon, and they're gone. So 6 mil is a good number to have for a Nemesis in the dark zone. And you see it's not pulsed. So if we come to the secondary version, okay, this one here is if your teammate is using the technician. This is where you throw on a weapon that has Sledgehammer. Now you want the M870. I don't know why I have that scope on there. It's a visual bug. But anyway, this is going to allow you to get that Sledgehammer out and still give that extra 10% status effect damage to targets that are status affected and get that damage out. Now you won't, but your other players will. And that is where the other player who's using ongoing directive also gets that extra 10% because he's giving you 10% for having being up close. So you're giving him that. Now, the other part is if you don't like the Sledgehammer on here or the Nemesis, you can easily throw on a Scorpio shotgun. Boom, you get status effects and you get the opportunistic. Then this person can just be a shotgun person. He can run up there with the shotgun, still being able to pulse, having the efficiency so that way your teammates can have some survivability, having dual survivability with a healer and efficient at the same time, and then running up with opportunistic, shooting them one time and watching every player go down, and using a Scorpio shotgun so if you don't get them with the one shot, you can stack up shots over and over and over, or even using the Nemesis because this works with sniper rifles and shotguns, and just having a M870 in Nemesis. So basically you're one-tapping anything. If you didn't one-tap them, they have the opportunistic to where now they have an extra 15% and the players go down even faster after you've hit them and taken all their armor off with the unbreakable with the Nemesis. And you're still supporting your players because this is what it is. This is a support build. You have all this extra damage. Now with this holster, we don't need this holster. This is where this holster can actually come into clutch. You can actually go get an ammo dump and now have a few extra rounds for your shotgun and putting that into place if you want to be the shotgun type reliant person. The person who comes up and supports your team with the shotgun, the Sledgehammer, the Nemesis, the Scorpio shotgun, the extra Sledgehammer ability. This is the player that boosts your team up even more. And by doing so, you can even throw on the Acosta's Go bag, even though you don't have to worry about the opportunistic. You can then just spam grenades over and over and over all day long and just keep Sledgehammer going for your team. This is where it can actually become toxic. As for your secondary skill, doesn't matter. You just have to have a pulse on with this build. That way the spotter guy has damage. And then it's basically anything you want after that, ladies and gentlemen. I mean, just you can make it look like this. You can do whatever you want with this build. Like, again, there's 2 different versions. Both of them are just as good. And this is where it becomes the guy who supports the team and gives them what they need, that extra little bit. So those guys who typically use the Catharsis meta and everything else, the Catharsis will be dropped and gone away. When they lose that, they lose their 30% damage. With all these builds right here, the moment you just get a kill, you can go kill an NPC. You can go fight in landmarks with these same builds, or even take them to PvE. They will literally work the same. You and your 4-man crew using these in PvE could come over here to PvP and still do the same stuff. These are the types of builds that you want to have, to where you don't have to go swapping stuff between this character or that character, and actually having the ability to feel the same as you would in one scenario versus another scenario. And that's what I've always tried to give you guys with my channel, is so you don't have to go, well, now I've got to trade this for this because I'm going to PvP. No longer, no more. This is the 4 Horsemen.